Hey gang, Scott here. Welcome to In Post. Thanks for joining me today. Today's photo. This is a high contrast photo for sure. If you watched In the Field earlier this week, I shared an outing to Yaquina Head in Oregon, and I was there mid-morning to about noontime. Not the best conditions for landscapes. Didn't have any cloud cover. The sun was quite harsh, and some of the photos I was shooting directly into the sun. I liked this area that had this cool swirling water. But when I got the photos into Lightroom and started looking at them, I mean, even on the back of the camera I could tell, but they were really, really contrasty. So you know what? I still like the shapes in the photo. Let me go with it. I'm just going to embrace the contrast, embrace this high contrast, and see what I can do with it. And so I want to walk you through here what happens. I mean, this is the photo that came out of the camera. This is the raw, untouched. And if it weren't for the blue in the sky, you'd think I was shooting in monochrome, right? This is already just, it's just nothing else going on. That left-hand side in particular, this whole area, just crushed in shadows. Not getting anything out of there. But I like what's going on. I mean, I like the diagonals. I like the diagonals of the clouds in the sky. I was like, well, what can I do with this? So started playing, and I'm going to use these snapshots here. Just applied the basics. As I open things up, like, oh, okay, there actually is some detail here. I've got some stuff here. There is detail on the rocks. I can actually make out a few of the seals that are out here in the center. But this is just not going to be a color image, right? There's not enough color going on. This is about lines, form, shape. And when I see those types of things in a photo and there's not this splash of color, I start thinking in black and white. So went to black and white, and black and white number 4, and you saw a little correction there on my horizon. This is one of my favorite profiles that is in Lightroom. I really like, high contrast, little punchy black and whites. And this is, to me, already a stronger photo, right? It did bring out some other, challenges to deal with. I've got a little lens flare here. I've got something else, crawling around in the background there. Some cleanup to do. But the shapes are what's important about this. And the fact that there is gray shadow in the center, but very dark shadow here. Separation of the elements becomes even more prominent as a result. And then started finishing off things, cropped, got in tighter, didn't need all of this really empty. This is almost blown out. If I hit the J key, there's a little bit of clipping on this rock here. There's actually no clipping here. These are just pure blacks. Some spectral highlights I would only worry about if I am going to print. You can see I took care of the little flare and the little bits and pieces up in the sky. And then finishing off, it was just kind of like little finishing touches to even out the exposure. You can see on this side here, it's now just a little more even. And if I do that J key again, that took care of my clipping there. But that was the thought process with this. I had this very high contrast scene. The composition that I liked happened to be pointing into harsh sun. At mid-morning, not a whole lot going on in the sky, but I like the shapes. So let me run down those snapshots one more time to see that progression. Right? Started here, did the basics, and quickly said, this is not going to be a color photo, but there's some interesting shapes here. Let's think about it in black and white. Let's tighten up a little bit because the story is really in the center. And some final tweaks to balance out the exposure. And that was the sum of it. As far as anything fancy here, most of this stuff is straightforward, right? Basics, using a profile. The balancing of the exposure, it's just a mask, right? It's just one single mask, just like that, and raising up the exposure and opening the shadows a bit on this right-hand side of the photo. And we can see that before and after. So, that was the magic, and it really is pretty straightforward. I've done a bunch of videos about balancing exposures with gradients, but I hope you found this useful. And if you're out shooting and you have one of these high contrast days, think about shape, think about form, and think about black and whites, because those can work out pretty well as a result. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Got any other questions? Go ahead and drop them below. And until next time, my name's Scott Davenport. Have fun.